Today's topic of conversation is my race review for the F1 2018 Spanish Grand Prix. Pretty boring, to be honest. I was pretty hyped there. I'm hyped because I'm back, guys. I said I'll be really busy recently, so videos aren't going to be pumped out like they usually are. But today I'm back and I've lost my cold, so hopefully I'm back to my usual self, if not a bit more hyped than usual. But like I said, what a snooze fest. What a snooze fest to come back to. We've had a great start to the F1 2018 season, and round 5, the Grand Prix of Spain, did not live up to the hype for the rest of the season. Very similar to the season opener in Australia, and I think we can take a lot of parallels from that. As well, we saw in testing a lot of the paces of these cars, so going into the weekend, we can give a rough idea of where the teams were going to be. We could assume Mercedes would be the fastest car, Ferrari would be a close second, and Red Bull third. We could also assume that going into the weekend that Haas would be the 4th best team, and qualifying was pretty much that, with a front row lockout for the Mercedes boys, Hamilton and Bottas. Vettel and Raikkonen were 3rd and 4th, and 5th and 6th were Verstappen and Ricciardo. 7th, Kevin Magnussen. 8th was Fernando Alonso. So it was setting up to be a somewhat interesting race, to be perfectly honest with you. The 3 front teams, it was all being reported that they were all going to be really close together, but I think a lot of you would agree with me. What actually happened in the race was very much a 2017 race. If you know, I feel that race seems more at place within the rest of the 2017 races than it does with the 2018 races. If you catch my sort of vibe I'm going for there, didn't quite have the edge that we've seen across 2018 so far, which was a bit gutting, to be honest. But I did think to myself at the end of the race, you've got to have races like that to appreciate the stunning races like we had in Bahrain, China and Baku. So, you know what? I'm not too disheartened, and the weekend started off great in practice, to be perfectly honest with you, and it was some of the best practices and qualifying sessions we've seen all season. So that side of the weekend was actually quite interesting. We saw some spins from most of the drivers up and down the grid. We saw some huge crashes as well, including Daniel Ricciardo in FP1 and then Brendan Hartley in FP3. Massive smash meant he missed qualifying, and there's a lot of question marks over Brendan Hartley. Reports coming out this week that Pascal Wehrlein could be taking his seat as early as the Canadian Grand Prix. That would be an interesting development for sure. I think if you guys have been on this channel for a while, you would know that I'm a big fan of Pascal Wehrlein. I think it's very unfair he's not in F1. But, that being said, a trip to Toro to replace number 28, Brendan Hartley? I don't know. I don't really see that happening. But who knows what's going to happen. But just thought I'd just tuck that in just quickly there. Just food for thought, if you will. Qualifying, like I said, pretty straightforward. We saw that crash from Lance Stroll, who'd also crashed in practice as well, who was also outperformed by Robert Kubica. So there's a real crisis going on at Williams as well. So let's crack on with the race then. I didn't manage to do my preview for this weekend, so unfortunately there's no predictions to go off, which I do love doing my predictions, so I did miss out on that. But I'll let you know my personal predictions going into qualifying and the race. I really felt that it would be Bottas's weekend, and I thought he'd get the pole and I thought he would get the win. So close in qualifying, and in the race, didn't quite go to plan for Valtteri. So let's start off then with the start. It was a good start from Hamilton, who dominated the whole race. Let's be perfectly honest, that was a sublime drive from the 4-time world champion. His best race of the season, I would say. Maybe close to Australia, but he did make a few mistakes late on in Australia. But here, world class, 100% showed that he deserved those 4 world titles. But despite Bottas being second on the grid, into turn 1, he was 3rd. Vettel made a great start, got on the slipstream of the Finn, went around him, thought about going for Hamilton, but thought better of it. Ended up going around the outside of Bottas into the 3rd corner, got that 2nd place. And up the front, apart from that, pretty similar order. Big changes, though, were the 2 Haas boys. Grosjean had worked his way up into P7, I believe it was, P8, behind his teammate. So the Haas cars were running 7th and 8th. Magnussen, little bit of a mistake, sort of through the corner, completely just threw Grosjean off guard. It shouldn't have. I want that to be known. In my opinion, I want it to be known now, I used to be a big fan of Grosjean. He's had a poor start to the season, and so you could argue I've got a bit of a soft spot, so I just want that to be known. But, again, he's had a dreadful season, and this is not what he needed. Spins the car, comes back across the track. Absolutely frightening stuff. It really was. I mean, it was great for the spectator, to be perfectly honest with you. I was loving it. I was cheering. I mean, even though I love Grosjean, spectacular crashes is what we all want to see, although we all want to see no one get hurt at the same time. But he comes back across the track, a huge smoke screen. You have no idea what's going on, who's about to get blown up. It ended up being Hulkenberg and Gasly who got involved in the carnage. There were also a few other guys that sort of got chucked out of position, if you will, in the carnage as well. When lap 1, Van Dorn got a 5-second penalty for cutting the second corner. It's always been a bit funny there, but Ericsson managed to go through the bollard. So to be fair to Van Dorn, he should have got that penalty. Very, very huge amount of carnage on that opening lap, so a bit harsh, but it was great to see. And safety car obviously came out. It was a big pile-up. I think, yeah, that's the biggest pile-up of the season so far. And unfortunately, it was probably the biggest highlight of the race so far, or the race in general. After that, a pretty nondescript afternoon for both drivers. Safety car goes in. Leclerc found his way up in P9, and Charles Leclerc had another fantastic race today. Behind him was Esteban Ocon in P10. Safety car goes in, and Alonso pulls off a magnificent move around the outside of turn 3. He's done it before there. What a driver. I really did find myself thinking that on several occasions this weekend, really showing that he has the talent to win the World Championship. He really does. And winning in the WEC last week as well, great stuff for Fernando. So a really great race at his home Grand Prix. Lost out on the start a bit, but really as the race went on, kept on proving his talent. He 100% has. Then, lap 19 is when things started to change a little bit, especially with the front runner. So it was Hamilton leading, Vettel second, Bottas third, Raikkonen fourth, Verstappen fifth, Ricciardo sixth. Vettel comes in, lap 19, slow stop from the Ferrari boys. Not too slow, but I think it was about 3 seconds, something like that. So nothing major, but it's enough where you're noticing, Ansek, Bottas has a real chance here. Vettel then comes out behind Magnussen, stuck in traffic. Now, Magnussen's going to get out of the way because he's in a Haas, but still, it's not going to be completely easy because they're fighting for position. So it's not going to be, you know, completely plain sailing for Vettel. Bottas has to nail this lap. He does. Gets purple sector every single one. Bottas is going to get out in front. He gets in the pit, and his bad luck strikes again. Awful stop from the Mercedes boys. Bottas gets back out, and as you saw in that picture just then, so close to getting in front of Vettel, but as Bottas re-emerges, Vettel chucks it up the inside of Magnussen, around the sort of outside of Valtteri Bottas, and Vettel retakes P2. Once again, pretty slow after that. Raikkonen dropped out of the race. Ocon dropped out of the race. Van Dorn dropped out of the race. We saw a few sort of midfield squabbles, most notably between Sainz and Ericsson. They had some really great fights. And Alonso and Leclerc. And Leclerc remained in front of Fernando Alonso for a long, long period of time. It was pretty much from lap 1 all the way, I think it was to lap 43. And it was only after Ocon went out of the race and there was a virtual safety car, Alonso had a better run once that ended and managed to pass the Sauber driver. Also, under that virtual safety car, Vettel decided to pit, and that would be a really, really massive mistake for Ferrari today. Every team was going for the one stop. Ferrari saw the opportunity with the virtual safety car, and safety cars have pretty much been their friend this season. It was not today. Nice little gamble from Ferrari, I want that to be known. I think it was a good idea, but in practice it just didn't work. Overtaking did seem difficult today. We did see a fair amount, more than we did in Australia, but it still didn't seem quite as easy as it has in the previous 3 races. So Vettel ends up behind Verstappen, a very slow stop from Ferrari that time. I think it was 5 seconds. Ended them back in 4th place behind Max Verstappen. the race was on. Hamilton led. Hamilton had pretty much led every single lap, apart from when he had pitted and the Red Bulls hadn't. Hamilton had been smashing it. Bottas now took P2, where he'd not been all race, except when Vettel came in for that one lap. And was Vettel going to have the pace to pass all those guys in front of him? The answer was no. Even when Verstappen ran into the back of Stroll, Verstappen always has a little mistake this season. He's continued that trend. Still hasn't quite had the complete clean weekend he was hoping for. But Verstappen, front wing damage, nothing too major. Manages to control the car, bring it home for his first podium of the season. Under that safety car as well, just as it restarted. Ricciardo did a little spin, didn't really get picked up on any of the media channels, but it happened and really did end up bringing him out of the fight, to be honest. So he did seem to have the pace. He did end up with the fastest lap, and he was smashing out those fastest laps at the end of the race. So it's going to be a sort of what could have been for Ricciardo, but that was pretty much it. After that, race was pretty much done. Hamilton, one of the most dominant victories from him we've seen in a very, very long time. Bottas comes home finally with a bit of luck in P2. Still not quite that win he has deserved this season, but nevertheless, P2 is still a great effort, and Verstappen, P3. Great for him to finally get a good chunk of points. He's desperate for that for sure. Then in 4th place was Sebastian Vettel. He's, like I say, gutted for him. Ferrari strategy again, it screwed him over a bit today, lost 2 places and is now 17 points behind Lewis Hamilton in the World Championship. So points lost for sure for Vettel today. 5th for Ricciardo. He'll probably be alright with that, probably content after a spin, after a pretty nondescript race. 5th going forward from where he qualified. I think he'll take that for sure. 6th, Kevin Magnussen, best of the rest. He'll be fine with that. Did have issues in practice. I just want to mention that. A very dodgy move during, I believe, FP1, blocking Charles Leclerc. He has got a reprimand for that and more points on his super licence. And after his antics in Baku, I said at the beginning of the season that Magnussen was a very dirty driver, and it's really put me off him as a driver, to be perfectly honest. And he showed promise at the beginning of this season, and I have said before that this season he was changing my opinion a bit, but the past 2 races, today he was clean, but what he did to Leclerc in practice, it was just ridiculous, absolute nonsense. And what he did to Gasly in Baku twice was just, that should not be allowed, and really disappointed from Magnussen. So it'll take me a while to warm to him again, but 6th was a good result, so I'll give him that for sure. 7th for Sainz, he's really kicking into a bit of form now for Renault, so I'm sure he'll be very pleased with that as his home Grand Prix, ahead of Fernando Alonso, so he'll be even happier about that. 9th was Sergio Perez. Points again for Force India. Pretty nondescript race for Sergio. And 10th with the final point was Charles Leclerc. Great race from him. Disappointed, I reckon, with 10th place in the end. Holding on to 8th throughout the whole race, but just at the very end, tyres seemed to wear off a bit. Alonso managed to get past on the restart of the virtual safety car, and Perez, with a superior straight line speed and superior tyre life, managed to get past the Monegasque driver. P11 and just outside the points was Lance Stroll. He'll probably be a bit annoyed as well. That contact with Verstappen compromising him there a little bit as well. And then Brendan Hartley, P12, P13, Marcus Ericsson, and the final finisher in P14 was Sergei Sorokin. The non-finishers Van Dorn, Ocon, Raikkonen, Grosjean, Gasly and Hulkenberg. All the drivers did a one-stop except Sebastian Vettel, which is interesting for sure. One-stop was clearly the way to go, but Ferrari tried something different, didn't pan out, did it? So I think they'll be a bit annoyed going away from this weekend. That was not a win, to be honest, for them, but that was surely could have been a P2 and a P4, so to come away with a P4, they won't be happy with that. So going into Monaco, a race where they dominated last year, they will want to smash it again this year. And you know what? Most years, I've never really been looking forward to Monaco. I've just sort of accepted that it's a race with no drama. But I've got an inkling. I've got that feeling that it could be a really good race this year in Monaco. So I'm hyped actually. I'm really excited, really looking forward to that one in 2 weeks' time. But before we go, the bit that I'm sure you guys would love to hear my thoughts on is my driver of the day and my rating out of 10 for this race. So I'm going to start with the race rating, and I gave Australia a 6, I think it was. In my head, I think this race was better than Australia, but also I don't think I can give this race a 7, so I'm also going to give the Spanish Grand Prix a 6 out of 10. The crash at the beginning was great. In Australia, I think back to it now, we did have those tense final few laps with Hamilton and Vettel fighting at the front, Ricciardo fighting for that final podium. So, yeah, it's only going to be a 6 out of 10. Like I said, the crash at the beginning was fantastic, but apart from that, pretty much a snooze fest, really. Not the most enjoyable race, for sure. And driver of the day, you know what? Doing this video, and before this video, I was thinking Charles Leclerc. But I'm not going to give it to Charles Leclerc. It's going to be very close, but someone who, and you know what, to be perfectly honest, I rarely give it to the guys who end up on the podium. But today, my driver of the day is going to be Lewis Hamilton. Absolutely smashed everyone else this weekend. Not as much in qualifying, and he just got on pole, but in the race was another class, to be honest with you. So Hamilton is going to be my driver of the day. The next race is Monaco in 2 weeks' time. Like I said to you guys, I'm already buzzing for that. Next weekend, we have Formula E, so as you guys know, I do love a bit of Formula E, so I'll be looking forward to that as well. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. I'd love to know your thoughts on driver of the day. I'd love to know your thoughts about the race. Leave those comments in the comment section below. Guys, thank you so much for watching, as always. Thank you for being patient as well at the moment with my exam period. So the schedule's a bit all over the place, but thank you as always. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.